Thank you everyone for taking the time to be with us today for the discussion. I think the event has been flowing very well. The first part of the event, we heard about what young people want. It was interesting to hear that the Voices report, where we spoke to 37,000 people, where the overwhelming feedback from parents and students was that they expect to learn life skills at school. You know, parents believe that it's really where in classrooms where transactions on life skills will be important. It was inspiring and great to hear the state leaders talk about the work they do as well. And you know, it's how unanimously they say about how life skills has to be integrated into education. It's not a parallel car, it's not a sidecar, but it's totally and central, which I think in the last 3 years has been a significant shift in the way we've been looking at life skills. Because 3 years ago, there was a question on what, where, and why, and today we see it as an integral part of education. I hope in this panel discussion, we shift the focus to the central view. Given India's structure, the central government does play a significant role in defining the narrative and the approach for life skills, both in the skills ecosystem and the education ecosystem. And would love to hear your thoughts. As I was listening to your bios, it's amazing to have this level of rich experience on stage. So I thought I could divide today's discussion, we have roughly about 35 minutes, into 3 broad focus areas. One, in your respective roles within NCERT and NSDC, I would love to hear, how do you see life skills become a part of your focus today? And what are some of the emerging and current actions that are coming up? The second part really is, as leaders in this space, as people who have really seen the space overall, what are some critical areas that you believe we should focus on for us to really enable young people to thrive through effective life skills? And I think getting your thoughts there will be helpful. And the last part, maybe a short question for both of you, is as a collaborative of organizations that are here, which is civil society, philanthropy, corporates even, what are some things that the collaborative can do that will further strengthen the work that we as a country are doing to make this a place where young people can thrive? So these are broadly 3 questions. It'd probably take about 15, 20 minutes, and hopefully we have some time for the audience as well, so that we can, does that sound okay? Excellent. So I'd love to start with you. From an NSDC lens, you know, the first newsletter was out recently, and it had this specific focus on life skills as well. And you've been anchoring the skills dialogue in this country for the last decade or more. How do you see life skills becoming part of the skills ecosystem overall? And love to hear your thoughts.
Thank you. At the outset, I would like to thank Life Skill Collaborative to invite NSDC on this forum, because I have been hearing more about school education, school curriculum, and so on since morning, but we are not really into skilling school children, but we skill the workforce. So our perspective on life skills is a little different from what has been discussed here since morning. So having said that, we are also talking about life skills. We have not termed it as life skills, but we are looking at developing a curriculum for what we term as skills for all, or universal skills. Somebody in the panel just before us talked about the demographic dividend that India enjoys. So we have a young workforce. The median age is 28 years. Every 4th person joining the global workforce is going to be an Indian in years to come, which means 25% of the global workforce will be Indians. 25% of the global GDP is ours if we really play our cards well and if we become a part of the global workforce. While we start on this journey of not only skilling people for the roles that they would play within the domestic segment, but as well as looking at the opportunities globally, what we are really missing right now is this whole component of life skills. And by life skills, we really mean employability skills, skills for entrepreneurship, that is self-employment, soft skills where, you know, communication and both verbal, non-verbal communication has become so much important. The cultural ethos, empathy towards others is becoming more important, because if you start working in other countries, you will have to appreciate their culture. You will have to appreciate that the language is going to be different, and you will have to inculcate those skills in you before you become a part of the global workforce. So which means these skills will have to be embedded not just in the school children today, not just among the youth, but even people who are in their mid-career right now, because we find that people, as they grow older, I mean, all of us become little rigid in our outlook. And this is the time when we have to sort of upskill ourselves, reskill ourselves, and learn some of these life skills which are possibly, going to help us to take bigger role as we move ahead in our career, or we are looking at a career progression pathway. There is also another element that I want to bring into this discussion, and that is, why do we need life skills for all, for the entire population? I mean, we are looking at n number of global problems, right from climate change to terrorism to, not being tolerant about other cultures, other civilizations. And somewhere it is basically the way we are, the way we are brought up, the way we learn along the way, that plays a major role in this. So for all these global problems, we have to look at the local solutions, and they can come in only when these life skills are imparted right from the beginning. So when we talk of fighting climate change, when we talk of achieving SDGs, for all these also, people getting these life skills is going to be very important. As NSDC, we want to not only focus on youth, but we want to focus on everybody. We want to look at skills for all kind of curriculum, universal skilling, where all these aspects can be brought into focus.
I think, thank you so much for sharing. And just 3 points that stuck as you were speaking. One, I think the idea of looking at the relevance of life skills across the life cycle of a person, not just at school, I think is extremely important. And so thank you for bringing that up. And I think I'd love to build on it as you, speak further to say what can be tangibly done towards enabling that. I think the second part of it is that, in my mind, the role of education is essentially threefold. One is, how do we help create people who believe in themselves? How do we create effective citizens? But also, how do we create economically productive people? I mean, it's a three-part goal. And industry and the workforce focusing on the kind of skills that they are, focusing on will actually be a good signal for us to see what we need to build. But the third point, Archana, that you said, which I think is very important, is that there is a global view to this problem, not an India view to this problem alone. We are, in some sense, the store for the workhouse for the world. So how do we look at a global view to the work that we are doing in this conversation today as well? I think it's a very, very good reminder. So thanks for bringing that up. Indrani, I want to move to you next. The national education policy was an important milestone in sort of anchoring life skills, and even our, the leaders from the states highlighted that as becoming a critical lever for them to look at life skills. From an NCERT perspective, would love to hear your thoughts on what has changed from the national education policy emphasizing life skills coming in, and particularly from your role in Parak, how do you see the role of assessments shifting? I think will be very, very useful to hear as well.
Namaste to all, and at the onset, thank you to the Collaborative Life Skills for organizing this gathering. Wonderful audience and wonderful panelists. The panelists before, which I was hearing, the state leaders, fantastic. The work that they are doing and the way the life skills have been conceptualized and the entire process that have been thought of, really great. As far as, at the national level, how we are looking at, like we all know that at the present scenario in the world, and it has always been that the only one thing that is constant is this change. And in this change, in this environ of change, how do I meaning all of us, like very well pointed out that life skill is for all, not just for few. So how do we adjust ourselves? It all depends on the life skills that I have, mastered on. So NEP talks about the 21st century skills that are very important. And it's it has been there in our Indian context throughout. Maybe somewhere it got lost, and that is what NEP 2020 is trying to do, trying to get it back again in the system. If I'm sure that in this audience, some of us have read Ishwar Chandra Bidyasagar, the Borno Porichai. It talks about nothing but the how the life skills can be incorporated in the fundamental years of learning. Then we also know about Sri Aurobindo, the guru, the poet, and he also has talked about the Chittamanas. Then we have of course, Rabindranath Tagore, he has talked about, and Gijubhai Badekar. The Divaswapna, I think most of us have read. It has been translated in so many different languages, I think 22 different languages or more. So it also talks about, so life skill, giving a foundation right during the early hours, early learning stages. That is very crucial. And NEP 2020 also talks about the same. Dr. Thomte, I think she spoke about how the holistic progress cards are very important in incorporating the life skills that we are at present using at the national level. We are trying to promote in collaboration with all the states and the union territories. And if you see the holistic progress card, there we talk about the different domains that needs to be developed. We, along with the cognitive domain, along with the language and literacy domain, we have the socio-emotional domain, we have the art and aesthetic domain, we have the good study habits. And similarly, for the adult other stages too, like NEP talks about the 5+3+3+4, that is the 5 years of foundation, then the 3 years of preparatory, that is 3, 4, and 5 grades, and then 6, 7, 8 is the middle, and the 9, 10, 11, 12, the secondary. So these holistic progress cards have been developed at the national level, in which we have tried to kind of amalgamate the life skills along with the regular the subject matter that are there. So the domains are there, the learning standards are there. Corresponding to the learning standards, we have the curricular goals and the competencies. So life skills are not viewed as something different, but they are used in an integrated manner. Again, like there was a few days back, we had a roundtable discussion on the National Achievement Survey that is being conducted, and I think many of the faces, some of the faces that I see out here were also there in that. I don't know if Monal is here from Kaivalya, and even from, I think, life skills, Renuji was also there, if she's here around somewhere. So there was some discussions on, how we can integrate or have the life skills, in the National Achievement Survey. But in this regard, I totally agree with NSDC that if when we are talking about the National Achievement Survey, that's a sample survey that we do. Okay, it's not a census-based. So we did try to, incorporate the life skills in the National Achievement Survey. There were some discussions around it, and I can also tell you the life skills that were identified by us in this process. They were the first was the empowerment, that is resolving ethical dilemmas, and the second was resilience. I think Uttarakhand talked about that bouncing back by the children is a problem. So we were looking at the resilience, then the communication, which involved, which we had distilled into empathy and collaboration, learning, in which we had added the critical thinking, creativity, problem solving, and of course, the digital literacy, which we cannot shy away from. And employability, we talked about negotiation and decision making. So these were the some life skills which we thought we would like to assess, along with what the cognitive things that we are doing in the National Achievement Survey. But then later on, like I think again, Dr. Thomte talked about that Mizoram is very good in relationship, right? But perhaps is not good in the thinking. Is that right? Okay, so thinking. So, but then if the state says that, that's okay. But at the national level, if I point out that, that might not be taken in a good manner, right? So this, including the life skills in the National Achievement Survey, in the roundtable discussions also, we thought that perhaps this is not a good idea. It has to be done, like in the previous panelist, it was discussed that through the HPC, because it has to be a continuous process. And it has to be integrated in the regular teaching, learning that goes in the classroom. So rather than having assessment of learning for the life skills, I think what needs to be there is the assessment for learning and assessment as learning. In NAS, what we are doing is we are looking at assessment of learning. It is a summative. At the end, I'm telling you, but that won't be important. That is not all that important in life skills. When it comes to life skills, what is more important is that how the assessment helps the child in improving the life skills, and how from the assessment itself as a child, I learn how my life skills can be improved. So assessment for learning and assessment as learning. Thank you.
Wonderful points, Indrani. And I think, again, 2 points that I wanted to highlight. For me, I think it's a significant milestone when we shift what we measure. Because the system always optimizes for what we measure. And inputs start falling in place when we know that something is important. And I think if there is a way we can make a HPC relevant and accessible for a parent, because today a parent knows that, my math mark is this and my English mark is this, and so the input from the parent is the following. If they know that my child's, resilience, empathy, collaboration is the following, I think it shifts the dialogue at home, it shifts the dialogue in class, and so it's great to see that. We have a lot of enthusiasts in assessments in this room, which I know personally, and the point you made underpins a discussion that we have a lot of time, saying what is the fundamental shift in the paradigm in which we measure an English or a math versus measure life skills. Is it the same or not? And I think the point that you're making around how can we make measurement of life skills as a way for it to learn. I used to work with an education leader who used to say assessment is an intervention, and so exactly. So how do we look at that is going to be interesting. I'm sure there are questions in the audience around that, so I'm going to leave it to them. In the interest of time, I want to come back to you both as leaders in this space and people who understand the full system. And Archana, I want to come back to you. Markets are an extremely important indicator for people to know what is important, and it is the way it works. As you look at life skills becoming for all, how do we engage industry on this conversation? And how also the other way around, to come back to assessments, how do we make life skills measurable and observable for industry as well? I'd love to hear your thoughts given all the work you've done in this space as well.
Okay, so firstly, we are now trying to focus on the school to work transition. And within that, the whole skills for all paradigm comes in. As part of NSDC, our experts are working on developing a framework around these life skills. We call them universal skills, but yeah, more or less they are life skills. And we are trying to fit this into the parameters which we normally use. So for different NSQF levels, what sort of skilling should be done, whether it is employability or whether it is entrepreneurship or soft skills or foundational skills. Because for different levels, obviously the skilling has to be done differently. And that's how the market is also going to demand that, right? Then secondly, we are trying to link this with the national credit framework, because part of NEP is also going to be that, we have credits given for experiential learning, we have credits given for vocational learning. Those credits need to be transferable, which means at the national level, there has to be a buy-in for the curriculum which is coming in for skilling for all, or the life skills as we call it. Right now, some of the skills that we are talking about are really abstract, in the sense there isn't really one set standardized curriculum where we say that, okay, we want to teach children to become, culturally more sensitive, and therefore everyone should be taught ABC. That kind of standardization is not there. Unless that standardization comes in, unless it is put in a certain framework which is, acceptable to everyone at the national level, acceptable to industry, acceptable to all the stakeholders, we can't really have a situation where, the credits are obtained by students and they are transferable, they are recognized, and so on. So that means a lot of work needs to be done into standardizing whatever we are talking about right now and putting it into certain framework. And that's the work that we are currently undertaking at NSDC. And hopefully, we'll be able to roll it out very soon. So where we want to impart the skills for all training is, as you know, we already have, skilling interventions in the form of PMKVY schemes, which we implement, or the apprenticeship scheme. We are also now looking at Skill India mission being taken to, let's say, the rural communities, where farmers, farmer groups, SHGs, agri-tech or agri-businesses, they need to be trained. People, youth from the rural areas who are, forced to migrate and as unskilled labor. We want to prevent that from happening. So while we give them training for certain types of job roles, which is what normally we do, along with that, we also want to impart this training. So in all the skilling interventions that now we are planning from now onwards, we are including an element of digital and financial literacy in that. We are including an element of soft skills training. And that is meant for everybody. People who are young, people who are transiting from school to work, people who are, trying to, let's say, transiting from one industry to another, or people who are moving towards self-employment. For everybody, there has to be some framework within which, these skills can be imparted. In fact, that's actually a challenge for us also, that, trying to create that framework which is universally acceptable. Yeah.
I absolutely agree. And establishing that common definition that's accepted by all, I think is going to be a critical challenge. But once done, it's a critical milestone because it gives a common language and vocabulary for people to speak to. We constantly, internally always discuss how life skills going forward has to be holistic, consistent, and equitable. As you're speaking, it's clear that holistic in the way that it's integrated with everything you do, consistent so that it's enabled at every level, and equitable to look at the people who need it the most, especially unskilled migrants who are sort of reaching cities, etc. So all of these resonate very deeply, Archana. Indraniji, I want to come to you. Given your view of the education system overall, I think the HPC is going to be an important milestone for us to be able to achieve, to ensure that signaling is strong. For the actual transaction on life skills to be effective, what parts of the education system do you think we should focus on to ensure that the quality life skills is actually delivered in classrooms and at scale across the country? Any key priorities that you would highlight that we should focus on, I think would be great to hear.
I think whenever like we are talking about bringing about a change and change in education, the teachers are the ones who are at first targeted. But for me, I think the onus not only lies with the teacher, but the students, the parents, the community. I think for it lies on all of us, with all of us. You know, like the change begins with me. Only when I change my mindset. And what is more important is that the dialogues needs to start. If these dialogues are started in the community, if it goes inside, outside the four walls of the schools, I think that then we have achieved something. That's very important. Community involvement, I feel, is very, very important. And unless the importance of life skills are understood by the community members, by the parent, only then the real achievement will start from there. I think that's where we need to work on.
Things we discuss always is that the quality of education is finally contingent on the relationship between the community and the school and the parent and the teacher. Everything else is an enabling system for making that happen. But I actually have a lot of follow-up questions, but I know time is limited, so I'm going to come back to you later. Last question to you, Indrani ji, then I'll come back to Archana. The group here, the room here is full of people who are passionate about making life skills happen for every child in India. The collaborative, the Life Skills Collaborative brings together stakeholders who are committed to that. As people from within the system, what do you see as the role of a collaborative like this that will truly add value in making the collective goal of the country happen and for young people to actually thrive? But what could be some things that the collaborative should be doing or can be doing that you think will add the highest value?
I think huge, because like we know that India is big. Just one NCRT is not enough for it, not even the SCRTs. We want all of us, but then all of us need to have the same narratives. That's very important. We need to be telling the same story. If each one of us, have different meanings, then it will result in confusion. So I think the collaborative has. I was speaking to Arjun ji the other day, and he said that there are 84 frameworks about the life skills, and I have just gone through the OECD, UNESCO, and the UNICEF. So first and foremost is developing the operational definitions for each of them. What is it that we mean by collaboration? What is it that I understand by creativity in education and at different levels, starting from foundation to secondary? So that is, I'm just talking about the school education. This is very crucial, that we all come in one platform regarding the definitions, and then perhaps when we go about and the methodology can be different, because that needs to be contextualized as per the environment that the child is in. The different states will have different methodology to have that. But what we want to go in the different stages of education, there should be a consensus on that. And that is what I would like the collaborative. And of course, definitely as from Padak, I can say that we are open to collaborations, and do come forward, and we can develop something that is, one platform for all of us to share.
Absolutely. No, thank you. That's another same question for you.
So within the skilling ecosystem, we are now actually looking at a journey from making a person literate to making a person educated, and finally making a person humane, to really appreciate the surroundings, to contribute to their families, to their work environment in a better manner. In fact, today we see that there are people who are excellent in their technical education, but their soft skills are not good, and therefore, their career progression is kind of getting restricted at some level. So what we are trying to do from our side is really trying to look at these different target groups, trying to identify what sort of skilling needs are there across the target groups, and then how we can bring in this element of life skills or skilling for all in that. What we currently are looking for from organizations like, who are participating here or who are part of this collaborative is, firstly, as ma'am said, you have to clearly define these terms. What do we mean by employability skills? What do we mean by, soft skills, or even mental health for that matter? And what sort of skills are, or what sort of education or skilling needs to be imparted so that mental health can become stronger and people are able to cope with the stress at all levels, right from school to, your workplace. So we are really looking at collaboration coming in with NSDC. You bring in the curriculum, you bring in these definitions to us, collaborate with us. We have a very good platform available where these courses can be posted so that they are available pan-India. So I don't know how many of you have seen the Skill India digital platform, which is now available through NSDC. So Skill India Digital is basically opening up the skilling ecosystem for everyone. So you bring in the courses, you bring in the curriculum, collaborate with us. We are ready to put those courses over there so that it becomes available to everyone. We have the strong industry connect. So for us, doing this kind of skills need assessment and then offering a basket of courses, including the life skills to different target groups would become a lot easier. So we are really, I'm here to kind of sell NSDC right now to the organizations who are participating over here. Please come and have a dialogue with us. We'll share what we are doing for improving the skilling ecosystem, for becoming the change maker, for becoming the catalyst in this. And then we also want cooperation, collaboration from the institutions at grassroots level also to really understand what the skilling needs are and how we can meet them in the best possible manner. Because we can't do everything by ourselves, right? So we need that kind of collaboration. In fact, we have been talking to Arjunji for quite some time, and that's how this contribution to the NSDC Connect also came in. In fact, that contribution in the NSDC Connect feature is very well appreciated by everyone. And we want to take this dialogue forward and not just restrict it to that, contribution. So in fact, we have been talking about how Life Skills Collaborative can possibly work with NSDC to take this Life Skills initiative forward.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And just to summarize from my side, 3 things that I'm hearing. One, how do we have that one narrative? Everybody who cares about young people, how do we build that one narrative? What do we really want? Because sometimes vocabulary becomes a problem. Intent is always the same. Second is, how do we have one vocabulary? How do we know when I say resilience, you say resilience, you say resilience, from a community to a school to a skilling partner to the market understands resilience in the same way, even if they transact on resilience differently. 3, how do we pool our resources, our curriculum, our courses, our materials, so that we can sort of amplify the access to those resources and get to reach a lot of people? I think next year we should come back again and ask ourselves how far we got here in achieving some of these goals. I'm so sorry to ration time for Q&A, even in the last session and this one. We're just running short on time. I can take 2 questions, perhaps. So I see a hand there. I think Vandana has raised a hand. And I can't give 2 questions at the same table. Sorry, Vaijayanti. I'm going to give it to the other side. So Vandana on the one side and the lady on the here behind you is actually the first question. So why don't you ask your question? Vandana, if the mic can reach you, you can ask your question as well. Please go ahead. We can hear you, so I can repeat your question.
Ask the panelists again the question that you actually asked, and I didn't feel there was enough of a response.
Okay.
Which is about industry engagement. Yeah. So how can the voices of employers help us to frame life skills, to prioritize life skills, and even to help us know how they're taught? Because the refrain that I hear from employers is that they can train for the job, but they need the raw material. And by that, they mean maybe something what Navya said in the beginning. They need young people who know how to leverage the school skills they have.
Excellent. So that's one question, which is how do we sort of amplify the voice of the industry? Maybe I'll take Vandana's question as well. I can repeat your question.
Pivoting to school to work transition as a core agenda. And it's related to what you said. NSTC, when they designed the curriculum, it was mapped to a job role and within multiple industries. So how open are you to really recognize life skills as a core skill and not necessarily see it as an add-on to a particular job role? Because what we see and hear from our work in skilling, that skilling a person only on life skills can get her or him a entry-level job. So how open is the system to really recognize life skill as a core skill for school to work transition?
Thanks. So I think I can just give a combined response. So yes, we are open to looking at skills for all as a kind of separate skilling intervention. In fact, we are consciously moving away from job role oriented kind of skilling that we have been doing for all these years. And that is the reason we are talking about, firstly, the skills for all design that is being undertaken. We did not call it life skills, but because of the industry connect that we have, so there are 36 sector skill councils which are aligned with us. We have incubated them. They represent different industries. They represent all the sectors across the economy. And when we do skilling needs assessment, when they tell us the industry voice, we know that there are certain skills which are missing. So some skills can be acquired by, doing a job role kind of training, but there is something beyond that which all the industries require today. And therefore, we are absolutely open to, bringing this industry connect in, and then specifically looking at courses which are geared towards skilling for all, which are looking at soft skills, which are looking at foundational skills, which are looking at digital financial skills, entrepreneurial skills. I mean, today we are moving from jobs to entrepreneurship. I mean, this dialogue itself is completely new. We were initially only talking about job roles. Today we are consciously looking at self-employment and how today's youth can actively move towards self-employment. And when you are moving towards self-employment, these skills are going to become absolutely important for you. So when we design tomorrow's entrepreneurship development programs, we have to bring in these skills in. We cannot just be teaching a candidate how to, set up a business and what sort of legal requirements are there and what sort of, how do you open a bank account and so on. We have to give the other skills also, including communication skills, negotiation skills, creative thinking, problem-solving abilities. So these things are going to become important. So everything is going to be integrated in the kind of curriculum that we are going to offer in future, and we are definitely moving away from a typical job role kind of skilling scenario that was there in the past. So as I said, have a dialogue with us. There are a lot of ideas that we have, and we are looking at more and more people coming to us, telling us what the requirements of different segments are. I wouldn't call only industry, but the different target groups, different segments, they have their own skilling requirements, and we'll see how best we can cater to those.
Thank you. We just, sorry, out of time. I know there's a much longer dialogue. I do hope you stay with us for a little longer. I know your schedules have been crazy today. You've moved mountains to be here, so I really appreciate that. And thank you so much for being a wonderful audience. And again, apologies we didn't make it as interactive as possible. Lovely to have you. Thank you.
Thank you for the interesting conversations on the need for life skills for all, moving from assessments of learning to assessments for learning and as learning, the need for standardization and establishing common narratives. Before the esteemed panelists leave the stage, I would like to felicitate them with the glossary toolkit. Thank you once again, Dr. Archana, Dr. Indrani, and Ritesh.